everyone. Welcome into a fresh hour of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Jacqueline D'Agostino. The MLB trade deadline is officially behind us, officially in the books. We've had some time, depending on who you are. Matt Snyder hasn't slept a lot, but we have some time to digest and kind of reflect on some of the moves that we saw at the trade deadline. Again, that deadline was yesterday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Some of the bigger names, we had Eugenio Suarez. That was probably the hottest name that was out there, and he has a reunion of some sorts with the Mariners, going back to the squad that he was with in 2022 to 2023. Carlos Correa, also a reunion there, going back to the Astros. Closers, that was a very hot commodity. Everybody needed to kind of booster up their bullpen. And again, these are some of the bigger trades that we saw that came to fruition there at the deadline. So now we're getting a look at the odds to win the World Series and kind of reflecting on where those odds are now that we've seen all those moves get done and we're really down the stretch here. For baseball, the Dodgers, they are the favorites at plus 240 to go back-to-back. Then we have the Yankees with the next best odds at 8-1. The Phillies at plus 850. And then we have the Mets, Dodgers, Astros, Blue Jays, Cubs, Mariners, and the Brewers. Those are both at 17-1. So let's welcome in our Matt Snyder here. And Matt, good to see you. We're kind of tier out teams that we could see win the World Series, some that have a chance. And we're starting off with teams that could win, right? And there's 4 big contenders. We are starting with the Astros because they have a bit of a reunion here. Carlos Correa is going back. A lot of guys that are going to be back healthy, including some pitchers. So when you look at the Astros and what the moves that they made, they are a legit contender in your eyes in terms of the World Series, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the Correa move. It is the guys that they're going to get back from injury. They're getting back Yordan Alvarez and Jeremy Pena within the next few weeks. On the pitching side, they already have Framber Valdez and Hunter Brown looking like a pair of aces for a playoff rotation. And then sometime this next month, they're going to get back Spencer Arrighetti, J.P. France, Christian Javier, and Luis Garcia. So there's a lot of people coming back for the Astros. They already have a lockdown bullpen. They already have a good lineup. They're going to get back one of the best hitters in baseball in Yordan Alvarez. They're adding Carlos Correa, and I think he'll be rejuvenated there offensively, hitting in Houston with his familiar Crawford boxes in left field. I think that come September, the Astros are going to be an absolute force. So they are absolutely on the upper tier.
All right, and they're sitting first in the AL West, another team that is the top of their division. That is the Blue Jays, and they get Shane Bieber. And Matt, I know you really like that move a lot, but still, this is a guy who is coming off of Tommy John surgery. He hasn't played in the majors so far this season, but could be nearing a return. And I remember you saying you love that move. So when it comes to the Blue Jays, how much does the Shane Bieber pickup kind of impact your decision on thinking this team is a contender? Because they were already looking pretty darn good before that.
Yeah. I probably was going to have him on the upper tier anyway, and I like the Sir Anthony Dominguez add at the back end of the bullpen as well, just shoring things up a little bit, shoring up their depth. They're probably going to get Anthony Santander back for the lineup in September, maybe give them a little bit of a boost there. The rotation, they already had Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett sitting at the top. Now you have that 4th rotation spot for the playoffs, and depending on how things go with Shane Bieber, he could look like a playoff ace. If not Bieber, you've got 41-year-old Max Scherzer in there, and then they can kick Eric Lauer to the bullpen to give them a little more depth there. And offensively, they've been unbelievable since the end of May. So I like the offense. I like the potential for the rotation, especially if Bieber, let's say 6 weeks in to rejoining the major league rotation. He's on a minor league rehab assignment right now. By the end of September, he might be looking like ace Bieber in front of guys like Gausman and Barrios and Bassett. So I think that there's a high potential here for the Blue Jays to return the World Series.
All right, we just showed the AL playoff picture, so let's talk about some of the teams on the NL side of things, and starting with the Phillies because they get their closer at the trade deadline in Johan Duran. It's a very, very tight race with the Phillies and the Mets there in the NL East, but why are they contenders in your eyes?
Well, it's with the starting pitching that they already had and the offense that they already had, the potential for the power in the offense with guys like Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, who, by the way, hasn't really been hitting for power at home, but we know he's capable. They've got a lineup that can get hot at the right time in the playoffs, and we've seen that before. Then you look at the rotation with Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez right now, who's been unbelievable. Ranger Suarez, Aaron Nola will be back from injury at some point. That probably kicks Jesus Luzardo to the bullpen there. The bullpen's going to get better when they add Luzardo to the bullpen. They add Duran there at the end as the closer. They've got guys like Matt Strom in his setup role, Jordan Romano in his setup role. This team has the potential, if everything comes together, to win their first World Series since 2008. Now, there's also some downside there. There's some variance. They could also get kicked out in the first round like they did last year. But the Phillies, for me, are on the upper tier because of that, the rotation, the power, and the back end of the bullpen.
All right, so finally, the last team that is in your upper tier, that is the Dodgers here. We showed the odds. They're the favorites to repeat, and they didn't really make any crazy moves at the deadline, but they're still a contender in your eyes. And I feel like even with injuries, it's still a loaded team, Matt.
Yeah, they didn't really even need to do anything. This team was built to withstand the regular season and attempt to be firing on all cylinders come October. And if you look at the potential playoff rotation, they've had injuries to a lot of these guys. But if they get the best versions of Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, maybe it's Ohtani in that fourth rotation spot. Maybe it's Clayton Kershaw. Maybe it's somebody else. They have so many injuries. They have so much talent there. They didn't really need to do anything in the rotation in front of the deadline. And then again, in the bullpen, they've had injuries to guys like Blake Trinan, Brusdar Graterol, Michael Kopech. Maybe Tanner Scott comes back late in the season. Maybe Kirby Yates starts pitching like the guy that they think he can be. We know how much firepower they have on offense. This is still the most talented team in baseball, so they've got to be on the top tier.
So the best shot, the Astros, Blue Jays, Dodgers, and the Phillies. Now if we go to decent chance to win, there's a whole lot of teams. You saw it very crowded on that graphic, and we're kicking things off with the Mets, who again, it's a tight race with the Phillies there in the NL East. They added two of the best relievers. They get Cedric Mullins. Where are you at on the Mets, and why are they not in that upper category when you consider everything that they have done and where they're standing right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you could argue that they should be up there. Like when you look at the rotation, that was my concern. And the funny thing is their rotation ERA on the season is unbelievable. It's better than some of the teams that I have on the top tier. I just wonder, like, as we get to the playoffs, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Kodai Senga, Frankie Montas, how do they hold up? Clay Holmes, is he going to hit a wall because he's converted from being a reliever and his innings are already getting up there? But if they get the best versions of all those guys, you look at that bullpen now with Diaz and Helsley at the back end, that seems unbelievable. They have so many good players offensively. Cedric Mullins could be a great 9-hole hitter, as you won't go to flip the lineup in front of Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso. So there is a big potential on the Mets here. I had worries about how the rotation will look by the time we get to October.
All right, next up, we got to talk about the Padres. And I keep scratching my head here, not really sure what they were doing, right, in terms of Dylan Cease. We thought he was going to be on the move. He is still there along with Suarez. And then they go out and add Mason Miller and Sears. So it feels like they're just going all in and loading up, Matt. So where are you at with the Padres, and why are they not maybe on that next tier where you consider all of the guys that they still have there in San Diego?
Well, they're not there because they still don't have a ton of depth, and they're a high variance team. So if they had a rash of injuries, especially to the rotation, then they would not look like that good of a playoff team. But if they get the good versions of everybody, and I keep saying that, but I'm trying to dream on how good the potential is for everybody. You get Michael King back from injury. You get the good version of Yu Darvish. You get the best version of Dylan Cease, who was twice finished in the top 5 of Cy Young. All of a sudden, that's a great 3-man rotation with an unbelievable bullpen. 3 all-star relievers, and then they added Mason Miller to that mix, who has as good a stuff as anybody. You could close things down after the 6th inning, and then you look at the potential on offense behind guys like Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. Maybe you get Xander Bogaerts hot. Maybe you get Luis Ariz hitting the 350 for the month of October, something like that. It wouldn't be out of the question. This is a team that could make that run and maybe win their first World Series of all time. But then again, as I said, high variance. They might get knocked out of the playoffs in the wild card round. They might not even make the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go with this ball club.
Yeah, a whole lot of question marks for some of those teams out there. Now let's talk about the Tigers, because they get a closer in Kyle Finnegan, and they went 1-13 in this stretch, and we were all kind of scratching our heads, and then they've rattled off 4 straight wins since then. But does that 1-13 run, Matt, kind of give you a pause to make you not want to put them in that top tier?
Yeah, it's a little scary. It shows like maybe they were a little too hot at the start of the year. There's been a lot of problems in the bullpen, and Kyle Finnegan doesn't just all of a sudden change those. But you've got Tarek Skubal. You've got Tarek Skubal to go maybe on short rest whenever they need him in the playoffs. We'll see how he holds up the rest of the year. But Casey Mize behind him. Maybe Jack Flaherty gets things together in the second half. Maybe Charlie Morton has a big second half now that they acquired him from trade. They have a capable offense. They have a great manager who knows how to deal with the bullpen in A.J. Hinch. They could absolutely win the World Series. But, yeah, we've seen how bad they can be in small stretches, and that could crush you in the playoffs.
All right, we're looking at the AL playoff picture here, but we're going to switch back over to the NL because we want to talk about your beloved Cubs. Because right now they're still chasing the Brew Crew to lead the division, but they are a wild card team, and they didn't really do a whole lot. And Matt, I know you were hoping they would be aggressive in terms of maybe some pitching, but why are they in this, decent chance to win tier as it sits right now?
Well, they still have one of the best offenses in all of baseball. They have one of the better defenses in all of baseball. They run the bases really well. In the rotation, they have some guys like Matthew Boyd and Shota Imanaga who have shown that they can pitch like frontline starters. Maybe they get to the playoffs and they serve as a great 1-2 punch. Jamison Tyone will be back. He could be a fine 3. And then they're scrambling for a 4. Maybe they come up with a phantom injury for Cade Horton because you wonder about his workload. Maybe they sit him out for August, bring him back in September, and then he's ready to go for October. Maybe Michael Soroka works out and he could be a nice number 4 in October. The bullpen, a lot of question marks there, but there's also upside there. So, yeah, I mean, if everything breaks right, they definitely could win it all.
All right, and finally, we're getting to a team here that I think maybe arguably had the biggest splash around the deadline. They were very aggressive, the Mariners. They get Naylor, they get Eugenio Suarez. They bring him back for a reunion there, and Suarez himself, he's on pace for like 50 home runs this season. When you pair that bat with Cal Raleigh, maybe I'm being a prisoner of the moment, but I'm thinking like, hey, World Series is in the picture, but why are they still in the decent chance to win category and not up there with the Dodgers and the Astros and that squad?
Yeah, it's the offense. They definitely added a lot of offense here. I didn't want to go all the way to the top tier because when they get on the road, their pitching isn't nearly as good as it is in T-Mobile. They obviously hit much better on the road. They have that extreme ballpark there in T-Mobile. It's like the complete opposite of Coors Field. But, really good rotation. Really good bullpen. It's not as deep at the back end behind Matt Brash and Andres Munoz, but it's a good bullpen. And now you look at the offense with Randy Arozarena hitting at the top, Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh. They added Josh Naylor and obviously Eugenio Suarez. So I loved what they did at the deadline. I gave them an A in grades. They're a very good team. They have a chance to win the World Series. They're the only team who's never been to the World Series. They're one of 5 who hasn't won it all. They have a chance. They have a chance, and I'm excited for Seattle here. Just couldn't go all the way to the top tier with them.
All right, yeah, sitting second in the AL West, 4.5 games behind the Astros. All right, let's go to the Rangers. We have 2 more teams to get to. The Rangers, they get Merrill Kelly from the Diamondbacks, plus a reliever. So the Rangers, where are you at in terms of seeing them being able to push it and get outside of decent chance to win and go beyond that?
Well, it starts with the rotation right now, right? Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, now Merrill Kelly as your 3 in the playoffs. And we just saw him as the Diamondbacks 2 in the playoffs a couple of years ago, get all the way to the World Series. And you look at the bullpen, it doesn't look as good as some of the other bullpens, but here's the superpower for the Rangers is that Bruce Bochy is an absolute wizard with the bullpen in the postseason. So I have no doubt he'll be able to figure it out. Their question mark is on the offensive side, and they have so much talent on offense, but they've been so inconsistent. Is everybody going to be firing on all cylinders at the right time? We've seen so many ups and downs from Marcus Semien, from Adolis Garcia, from Wyatt Langford, from Evan Carter. Corey Seager is hurt a lot. So, how is it all going to go offensively? But they're definitely in the mix.
And finally, the last team all the way at the bottom on that side of the graphic is the Yankees. And this has been such a fun conversation because we have some of our analysts like David Sampson counting them completely out of the postseason in general. But they do get Ryan Bednar. They get Duvall. They also got some bats and McMahon a little bit earlier this week. We thought they were going to be in on Sandy Alcantara, but he is still in Miami. Where are the concern levels for you still? What is missing for the Yankees at this point post-trade deadline?
It's still high. I would like to have seen them get more starting pitching, and they definitely need Aaron Judge back as soon as possible because that lineup without Judge is a bunch of supporting cast type guys. But if you get to the playoffs and you say you've got Max Fried and Carlos Rodon as your first 2 starters, Luis Gil should be back from injury. Now you've got a third. They have a deep enough bullpen now after, at the back end, they've got Devin Williams, Camilo Duvall, Jake Bird. Jeff Weaver, they've got enough there that Luke Weaver, sorry, Jeff. Wow, that was an old one. Luke Weaver, they've got enough there that they can make it work with only 3 starters in the playoffs, and maybe Will Warren will bounce back and be good enough there. Offensively, when you have Judge there, Jazz Chisholm, Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, Trent Grisham, Ben Rice, they have enough there that they could make a run if everything goes right. And the whole point is, I know they're a polarizing team, and that's why some people love to count them out, and I know they've been bad for a little bit, but if we're going to go with rose-colored glasses, when I talk about teams like the Rangers and the Mariners and the Padres and the Mets, you've got to do the same for the Yankees, and they have enough potential to make another run.
All right, we'll see what happens. Matt, we certainly appreciate it. I know it was a very busy trade deadline, so I'm sure there's a very well-deserved nap coming your way after this segment. So we talked about the contenders, the guys who have the decent chance to win, those teams. Now we're looking at the other categories, the long shots. The Red Sox are in there. According to Matt, some folks like them to kind of make a deep run. The Cincinnati Reds, the Brewers, even though they're leading the division, they're a long shot, and then no chance, the Rays, the Royals, and the Angels.